Whatever it is that you are asking for, there has to be a reason for other people to give it to you, especially in business, especially if it requires a budget. So you have to be able to speak in terms of value. And sometimes what the public values is not what you value. So the thing you would really like to help with or work on is something that an organization, when they look at it, might go, yeah, but not right now. So one of two things could be wrong, is either you haven't done a great job of figuring out what's valuable. Because if you offer, well, I'm going to paint all your ceilings to an organization, they're like, but we don't really need that right now. Like it's all acoustic tile anyway.
Hey everyone, I'm Dave in South Florida. I'm super excited to have Chris Williams back from the GTA, the Greater Toronto Area, to talk about better ways of working.
Hello, Dave. Thanks for having me and nice to see everyone.
Yeah, hey, great. Hey, thanks for coming back again. I want to talk about Forge Genesis, which is something that you're doing. Can you tell the folks about Forge Genesis, please?
Absolutely. So a few years back, I started a program called The Forge, which was about the leadership capabilities that are required for an Agilist to do well, especially if doing well amounts to making change in an organization. Forge Genesis takes those same principles, but elevates them to starting a business, whether it's a side hustle or even if you're just trying to be more intrapreneurial in your organization. The idea is you have to get good at coming up with ideas, validating them, and then promoting them, selling your ideas, marketing your ideas, putting words to your ideas so that other people understand what it is that you offer and why they should choose you.
I've been through the program last year. I really, if you're watching this or listening to this on a podcast, I want you to check out the website. One of the things that I took away from this is what you said. So even though I'm happy where I'm working right now, I'm gainfully employed. What is the problem I'm trying to solve, right? You take us through problem, agitation, solution. You take us through these different ways of how do we craft our message. And I think that's so important because a lot of times we always focus right on the solution, right? Like, for example, my background is Agile, as you know, and you also have a background in Agile, like, hey, Agile, but then what problem are we trying to solve with Agile?
Right, right. So the big things that you would take away from the Forge Genesis that have to be often hammered out of a person are certain habits and beliefs. And one of them is putting things out there because you think it's a good idea. So the first thing you have to do, if you have an idea and you want to ship it to, let's say, the boss that you already have, maybe you're chasing a promotion or a changing career or a new challenge. Whatever it is that you are asking for, there has to be a reason for other people to give it to you, especially in business, especially if it requires a budget. And so you have to be able to speak in terms of value. And sometimes what the public values is not what you value. So the thing you would really like to help with or work on is something that an organization, when they look at it, might go, yeah, but not right now, or that's not for us. So one of two things could be wrong, is either you haven't done a great job of figuring out what's valuable. Yeah. Because if you offer, well, I'm going to paint all your ceilings to an organization, they're like, but we don't really need that right now. Like it's all acoustic tile anyway. So one is the idea that you have isn't applicable to the customer that you're dealing with. The other thing is that maybe you haven't framed it in a way that people go, I understand it, which is a really big problem that Agile has across the board. We understand why everyone would want to do it, but when we talk to executives, they're like, I don't get it. I don't get it. And yet, the interesting part is that if you were to go and look at a CEO survey of the top 3 problems that every executive is losing sleep over, one of them would be, we're not agile enough, but they're talking small a agile. They're talking about we don't move quickly enough to service our customers or the market. And the funny thing is, AI is only going to make that worse. So companies are adopting AI. We have the famous no guardrails, no consolidation of tools. Like there's the 3 or 4 things that's wrong with AI at any given moment. And the truth of the matter is that we're adopting it anyway because companies want the benefits. They hear the promise of better, faster, and cheaper. Agile folks, we've all been here, but when they get their teeth into that, they're like, how soon can we make this real? The problem is when AI lands, there's going to be expectation that we're going to be doing more, even more quickly, with even less resources. Here, you have ChatGPT, figure it out. So what that'll do is create a need for even more effectiveness in terms of prioritization, decision-making, comfort with failure, spending on things we're not 100% sure is going to work. All the things that we do as Agilists are more important than ever. So there's an excellent chance that where we are in history right now, as a practice, our biggest problem is that we haven't communicated our value clearly enough. So when you take Forge Genesis, you're taking your ideas and you're validating them before you go to the world and say, well, how come nobody followed my page? How come nobody bought my stuff? It could be because you didn't get enough feedback from the market, real feedback. It says, would you pay $100 for this? Would you pay $5,000 for this? Would you pay $10,000 for it? We never asked that question and asked people to back it up with their wallets. So those are the kinds of problems that the Forge Genesis tries to hammer out, is the idea that it doesn't matter what you think, it matters what you can serve with. What value can you provide to the market? And then, some of the other things that people worry about is that they grab an idea, but they don't do the steps that are necessary to have that idea take a foothold. They don't have enough conversations. They're not willing to wait and try. They're not willing to knock on 10 doors and say, hi, I'm a complete stranger, but I have something you might want. In today's job market, or if you want to be an entrepreneur, we would have to fix that problem. You won't get anywhere unless you get comfortable doing the uncomfortable. So long story short, those are the two big components of Forge Genesis that really make it so powerful. Is that, yeah, you've had ideas before. Yeah, you've started a side hustle before, but you never did all the things necessary. And it's not your fault. You weren't trained to. You probably came up in technology or project management. And so those skills are not something that we ever felt, well, we should teach this to our Scrum Master.
Speaking of value, again, one of the things we did in last year was, things that you post on LinkedIn, right? Are we delivering value there? It doesn't always have to be, this is my product, buy it. Are we connecting with our audience? Are we connecting with our customers? And,
Yes,
what is resonating out there? And then once we kind of understand our customers, right, then think about the product and what could be an entry level, right? MVP. So we know this
exactly.
is Agilists. Get a minimum viable product out there and always
Exactly.
always be delivering that value.
It's
So
so funny that you mentioned that, because Agilists are so perfectly positioned to be entrepreneurs because we understand product, we understand iterating, we understand, no, most important feature first, not the flashiest feature first. So of all people, we should be the ones who could execute like this because it's what we teach people.
so let's talk about the class in general. Give us a taste of how many weeks, what's the format, what will folks get out of it, etc.
Sure. So it's now 16 weeks. When you and I worked on it, we did much longer. But I think there's a certain law of diminishing returns in terms of how long you can stick together and still drive energy. So it's 16 weeks now, which means by the time you get through the first 4 weeks, we should have a solid idea, validated with real humans, ready to start working on and start delivering. And so it's an hour a week of just instruction. Then we're constantly moving the needle as part of your cohort. So the idea is, if what you want to work on now is, I want to release a book, great, we'll work on that. We worked on that with you. I also want to make a product and have a website to start marketing it and selling it and delivering coaching packages. Or maybe I make something that doesn't need a website. Maybe I'm offering some instruction or some consulting or some coaching, or maybe I have a physical product I want to sell. It doesn't matter. We're going to figure out where should you be in terms of defining your product and building. Where should you be in terms of, do you need to be on social media? If so, where? If so, how often? So through those 16 weeks, we cover all those foundations, the ideation and the vision, who you serve, and then picking a product, picking something to start with. So we're not looking for heavy, high capital businesses here. I'm not talking about opening a sandwich shop. I'm talking about, you have experience as an Agile coach or practitioner today. For you, one of the things that you really shine at, Dave, is facilitation, right? You're really great
That's
at
right.
that.
Thank you.
So the natural place to go is an area where your passion and experience intersects with what the market will pay for. So that's what we discover first. And there's only one way to discover that, which is to put a really bad idea out there and have the public say, not only yes, I would buy it, or no, I wouldn't. But if you wouldn't buy it, what would have to change in order for this to be interesting to you? Because oftentimes it's not that your idea is bad. It's the way you package your offering. Yeah. So if you're offering, let's say, a classroom, and people are like, but what I really need is hands-on like mentorship. Then you should simply change your offering to something else. And you may find that all of a sudden, people who would have said no will start saying yes. So it's collaborative. You work with your cohort and your swim buddy to continuously move forward on your idea over the course of those 16 weeks.
That was my experience, right? So again, facilitation, building off of that, I made some guides, etc. I got to see what the reaction in the market was, so to speak, right? And adapted it from there. But as I mentioned earlier, again, I do have a full-time job and I use some of the techniques there as well to work, internally. So this is for Agilists, but you don't have to be an Agilist, right? It could be anybody that wants to learn how to go through this, right?
Absolutely. And I think in your case, when you talk about, well, I have a full-time job, but it was still useful, one of the things you have to take away is realizing that all selling is just helping people. And in your job, you're just helping people. There's no real difference between doing something for yourself versus doing it for a company, except the way you get paid. With the job, you get the steady paycheck, but you also, by the way, one thing that people say is, well, entrepreneurship is too risky. But if you happen to be looking for an agile job at the moment, or you know people who are, you know that people are going very long periods of time without being seen, meaning no interview invites, no email conversations, just plain ghosted. And if that sounds less risky to you, I'm interested to hear why, because at the end of the day, you're dependent on an algorithm now, whether your resume
Hmm.
gets seen or not. We're always trying to game that resume. On the other hand, if you have those very human, non-AI skills of knocking on a door and saying, hey, my name's Dave, and I do this for companies just like you. Do you happen to be struggling with one of these problems, or could you use a little more of this in your practice? If so, we should talk and see if there's a potential fit. If you can just get comfortable with saying that, then you can get comfortable with knocking on your boss's door and saying, I have an idea. I've been doing this job for a while, and I see something we could be doing that could really change trajectory or break through on, let's say, one of our results that we're tracking. The skill is really the same. It's entrepreneurial, meaning not I'm going to open my own shop or sell lemonade at the corner of my street, but it means entrepreneurial, meaning I'll endeavor. I'm going to try something. I'm going to drop pebbles into the river that have never been dropped before and see if I can make a ripple.
Yeah, and I think with AI, we're coming to the era now where, I guess our generation, right? We went to school, we learned a skill in college, and we're just going to use that until the day it's not like that anymore. We need to be more generalist. We need to be the folks that can accurately describe what the problem is, and AI can help with that, right? In implementing the solution. I just recorded a podcast just before this one. They'll be released around the same time where you have to understand the problem. And so is AI coming for your job? Well, probably the mundane stuff that you're doing, but there's still like, who are the leaders that can take this technology and use it and don't lead with a solution, but make sure it's solving a problem.
That's right. In fact, what people are being called to do in this day and age is be more agile. Like I said before, people want more flexibility, the ability to pivot faster, the ability to not fall apart when change hits, because change is going to hit more and more. As I may have said earlier, AI is just going to make expectations of speed go through the roof. Will AI take your job? No, but right now everyone believes it will, so they're laying off as though it will. We may find it's not so simple, but in this current moment, you had better be good at seeing that change coming, making a pivot, and deciding how to reoffer your value. I think agile as a word is probably dead. As a role, it's probably dead. But in terms of the value we offer, the ability to prioritize, do the most important thing first, to set a goal and hit something towards that goal every 2 weeks, to make your work visible,
Make work
to move,
visible. Yep.
all of those things that are in the agile principles, they're still valid. The companies still need us to do those things. They just don't want to call that a role anymore. So my big question to the public is, do you want companies defining your value? Do you want other people telling you this is what a role is and what it means, and we no longer want that role, on our floors and in between our doors? That's impossible. What we do is value, but we have to reframe it so that companies understand it. And so that's why AI to me, for an Agilist, is such an important tool. Like, I see people building agents or bots that basically replace themselves, right? So people are making all these bots to do what an agile coach does. Why would you work on that? Why would you work on your own extinction? Instead, work on moving your value forward. So where ChatGPT as an AI tool could be super interesting for you is one way is to do the research. What do companies need right now in April of 2026 when we're recording this? What's happening with the economy? What's happening with politics? What's going on in business? What do companies need? And if you can find answers to those questions, you as an agilist can help, because it doesn't matter what, let's say the metric is called, ABC. You've never heard of it before. Can you do that? So one of the things we used to get accused of all the time is non-technical scrum masters shouldn't be scrum masters, because if you don't know what I do, how can you help me do it better? That's what a coach does. A coach helps solve problems even if I've never gone through them before. So one of our love languages should be the ability to move and solve problems even if we've never solved them before. Agile's perfect for experimental environments where the thing we're doing, not only is it not the way we've always done things, it might be the way we've never tried before. We should be good at that. And so
Right.
to me, being an entrepreneur means going to an organization, whether as an employee, a contractor, or a complete outsider, knocking on those doors and saying, I know what you're struggling with right now, and I believe I can help. The way I'm going to help is not because I have a recipe or a framework. I have a framework for testing things. So idea to MVP to implementation to gathering metrics and seeing, did this make stuff better? And it can be anywhere in the enterprise. Don't think, can I make web pages faster? Think, can I make a new HR policy or a pay package faster? Can I speed up the hiring process? In marketing, we think, can I help a campaign get to market sooner? Can I help remote teams perform together better with better facilitation, for example? All of those things are valid ideas that can help a company. The other thing you might want to use AI for, yes, you can use it for validation, but nothing beats saying, hey, Dave, this is $100. You want to buy one? So I think the other thing that AI can be really handy for, obviously vibe coding and building solutions, web pages, social media content really quickly. But some of the AI stacks that you would have access to, like making videos or making podcasts without having your real voice in there, there's an awful lot of AI tools that can really help your productivity that way as well. So yes, you should be using AI in your entrepreneurial journey, even if the thing that you sell has nothing to do with AI.
I use AI to edit these podcasts. It saves me a lot of time.
Very good. Another thing I use them for is when I'm meeting with customers, if I have interviews and a lot of them will say no or have feedback,
Okay.
I collect all of that and ask AI, do you see patterns that I don't see here? Are there things that they're really asking for that I'm not picking up on? AI is really good at parsing that kind of information and answering those questions.
Yeah. And then also what you said earlier, I think, and I'm seeing this, there's a lot of opportunity outside of software for Agile at the enterprise level. And it doesn't, again, we don't need to talk about sprints and story points and the whole thing, but solving about as a program, as an organization, how do you know it's time that we have to make a change, pivot our approach, pivot our strategy? There's a lot of Agile in that. It doesn't look like Scrum per se, but there's an interest in the market for that.
100%. And so rather than trying to convince a company who doesn't think they need that, it is better to find a company who will value that. So for now, it might mean a tech company like SpaceX, where it's tech but hardware. But every company needs to have a certain amount of their efforts focused on innovation, new product ideas, new technology ideas, new solutions to pressing problems. There should be almost like an incubator somewhere in the org. This is, what problem have we got? We can't hold on to staff for more than 6 months. That's a problem. How painful is it? Scale of 1 to 10, 10 being awful, unbearable. If you get anything bigger than an 8, 8, 9, or 10, then you should be solving that problem. It's a priority somehow. And figuring out how to do that, sometimes the solution will be a pen and paper. It'll be a conversation. It'll be a slight change in culture or leadership or something we can do that doesn't require a 3-year implementation runway. Every company needs an organization that looks at problems throughout the organization. Technical, non-technical, people, financial, doesn't matter. A real cross-functional team, hello, We should be good at those too. We'll bring the right people together at any given moment based on the expertise that's needed. If you can help a company run a little center like that, help them innovate, you could be helping companies solve problems, not from this traditional way is to have the problem be bad enough that shareholders are actively mad at you. Then the solution gets some financing, but we go and plan and design the whole solution first before we test it. The reality is, if you don't know how to solve a problem, what makes you think that more signatures will give you more certainty? The only way to be certain about solving a problem is to try something and have it fail so you can learn from it and do more. Don't know how to make employees stay for more than 6 months? Try this. Is it helping? Doesn't seem to be. All right. Why don't we ask the people what would make them stay and see if we can incorporate some of that into the solution? That's, to me, Agile, right? Even if there is no widget to deliver next Friday.
Exactly. This is great. I'm sure people are wondering now, hey, how do I sign up? Where do I find out more information? Where can we point them to, Chris?
Happy to. You can find me at chris.williams@fusechamber.com or good old chris@badassagile.com. You could go to learning.fusechamber.com and check out my programs there. I did want to ask you, though, Dave, how was the course beneficial for you? What did you take away from Genesis? Where are you now that you wouldn't have been before?
Yeah, that's a great question. The benefit, we talked about value today. So I think just looking for that value and getting away from honing in on the solution, really understanding what the problem is to solve. We talked about PAS, problem agitation solution. We talked about different other approaches. And then in the initial weeks, the activities we went through to understand what are my strengths and what are the attributes of the customers that I think my strengths would work with, right?
Yes.
And so there is
Yes.
work here, folks. Like, you're not just meeting for a week. You will have homework, but you will learn a lot about yourself through the assignments. And again, you help pair us up with swim buddies. I'm still talking to my swim buddy, even
Yes.
though we're long gone with this course. So like, this will not only just be a course where then that's it, you disband. And, we've been in touch too after the course, right? So just having that support after the course has been very valuable.
That's big for me because transformation takes time.
Yes.
You don't want to take a course with me because of the information I'm going to give you. It should be the transformation that you're going to live through that will be valuable. We're going to build something together in 16 weeks. We're not just going to talk about ideas.
Excellent. Folks, if you want to reach out to me directly on LinkedIn, I'm happy if you want to ask me questions, or I'll definitely refer you to Chris, reach out to him. Post anything in the comments, and then we can also address it there as well. Chris, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you, Dave. I appreciate being here. And thank you to everyone who listened.
And thanks, everybody. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.